The legend of Henry Sinclair's possible voyage to America in 1398 begins with
Bless America. Thank you very much.
The legend of Henry Sinclair's possible voyage to America in 1398 begins with oral traditions, antiquarian writings, and commemorations in Nova Scotia. The most direct origin is the Guysborough Harbor Marker, which states, quote, "On June 2, 1398, Henry Sinclair allegedly set foot in North America, on the sandbar of Guysborough Harbor. His fleet consisted of 12 ships with between 200 and 300 men on board, a considerable force designed to be self-sufficient, made up of sailors, soldiers, sailmakers, carpenters, armorers, and farming monks." End quote. This inscription reflects the tradition that Sinclair, Earl of Orkney and Lord High Admiral of Scotland, crossed the Atlantic nearly a century before Columbus. Discovery UK notes that Sinclair is remembered not only as a nobleman, but as a possible discoverer of America, tied to the enduring legend of the Knights Templar. Susan Sinclair Green's account further emphasizes that, quote, "These sparse bits of evidence provide justification for believing that Prince Henry Sinclair came to North America 94 years before Columbus." End quote. From this origin, the story expands into carvings like the Westford Knight and Shipstone, structures like the Newport Tower, and oral traditions of the Mi'kmaq hero Glooskap. Together, they form a mosaic of possibility. Henry Sinclair, Earl of Orkney, launched his fleet in 1398. His companion was Sir James Gunn of Clan Gunn. The voyage was possible because mariners of the time already understood the North Atlantic Drift and Labrador Current, which carried Norse Greenlanders to Labrador and Basque whalers into the North Atlantic. Navigating by stars and seasonal winds, Sinclair's fleet could have reached Nova Scotia with relative ease, no more difficult than the Hanseatic trade routes across the North Sea. Other voyages reinforce this plausibility. Norse Greenlanders were still making trips to Labrador in the 14th century, then known as Markland. The Basques, famed whalers, ventured into the North Atlantic by the early 15th century. Sinclair's fleet, equipped with experienced sailors from Orkney and Norway, would have had the skill to follow these same paths. In Westford, Massachusetts, a glacial boulder bears the faint outline of a knight. The carving, known as the Westford Knight, depicts a sword nearly 39 inches long and a shield said to bear the Gunn clan insignia. Scholars like David Goodsword argue it commemorates Sir James Gunn, who died during the expedition. The Shipstone, housed at J.V. Fletcher Library, bears carvings that go beyond a simple ship. Careful study reveals a vessel with a high prow, resembling medieval Scottish or Norse ships. The number 184, interpreted as a tally or symbolic marker. Some suggest it may represent men, supplies, or days of travel. Skeptics argue it could be a later colonial addition, but proponents note that the weathering is consistent with older markings. An arrow carved into the rock, pointing in a specific direction. Experts speculate this arrow could indicate a route or orientation, perhaps pointing toward the coast, or symbolizing the direction of the voyage itself. The presence of both numbers and a directional symbol adds weight to the Shipstone's mystery. A ship carving alone could be dismissed as decorative, but a ship, a number, and an arrow together suggest intent, a record, a message, or a memorial. What makes the Knight and Shipstone compelling is not just their form, but their technique. Archaeologists have noted that both carvings were made by pecking and incising into the rock, a method consistent with medieval stonework. The depth of the lines, the deliberate shaping of the sword, the ship, and the arrow suggest intentional artistry, not random scratches. If the Knight and Shipstone were carved by the same hands, they may represent a memorial sequence, one honoring Sir James Gunn, and the other marking Sinclair's fleet and its journey. The Newport Tower in Rhode Island resembles medieval round churches, not colonial mills. Suzanne Carlson compared it to medieval ecclesiastical buildings, noting its arches and niches. William Penhallow discovered astronomical alignments. On the winter solstice, sunlight passes through its windows in a precise display. Such alignments are common in medieval churches, not mills. Further evidence suggests habitation. Forensic geologist Scott Wolter reported burn marks on the interior stonework, consistent with fire use, indicating the tower was occupied or used for living purposes. This contradicts the windmill theory, as windmills were not designed for habitation. Why would colonists build a massive stone mill when simpler wooden mills sufficed? Speculation suggests Sinclair's men built it as a baptistry, or a watchtower, modeled on Scottish designs. The Mi'kmaq hero Glooskap is described as a giant who came from the sea, taught laws, and brought peace. Silas Rand's Legends of the Mi'kmaq, 1894, records him as a culture bringer and a protector. Researchers have noted striking parallels. Arrival from the sea. Sinclair's fleet landing in Nova Scotia mirrors Glooskap's seaborne arrival. Teaching laws and crafts. Sinclair, as a noble and Templar-linked figure, was associated with order and agriculture. Glooskap taught the Mi'kmaq hunting, fishing, and governance. Sinclair was described in Scottish sources as tall and commanding. Glooskap is remembered as a giant, a leader whose size and presence were extraordinary. The Mi'kmaq's flag's red cross resembles the Templar banner Sinclair's men may have carried. Sinclair was said to have worn a distinctive Scottish cap and noble garments. Glooskap is remembered as wearing unusual clothing and a head covering, unlike those of the local people. Silas Rand noted that Glooskap was, quote, different in stature and dress, end quote, from ordinary men. Researchers like Frederick J. Pohl argued that this detail may reflect a memory of Sinclair's attire. While no direct archaeological evidence shows the Mi'kmaq adopting Sinclair's clothing, the Mi'kmaq flag and oral traditions suggest symbolic adoption of European imagery. Jason Colavito observed that, quote, the myth of Glooskap is identical to the history of Henry Sinclair, end quote, in some retellings, though he cautions that folklore adapts over time. Oak Island researchers argue that Glooskap's unusual dress and leadership role align with Sinclair's presence, suggesting oral tradition preserved details of his clothing. Taken together, the evidence forms a mosaic: the Westford Knight carved to honor Sir James Gunn, the shipstone with ship number 184 and an arrow, the Newport Tower with burn marks suggesting habitation, the Glooskap legend, with attributes paralleling Sinclair, including clothing and stature, the Mi'kmaq flag, echoing the Templar cross, petroglyphs and artifacts hinting at pre-Columbian contact, the plausibility of navigation, supported by known currents and seasonal winds, and reinforced by other voyages of the era. Each piece alone could be dismissed, but together they suggest a narrative of Scottish explorers, leaving their mark on the New World. History demands proof, yet legend thrives on possibility. The stones of Westford, the Tower of Newport, and the stories of Glooskap whisper of voyages across the sea. Skeptics may scoff, but the resonance of these tales endure. Perhaps Sinclair and Gunn did indeed walk the shores of America in 1398. Perhaps the Mi'kmaq remembered Sinclair as Glooskap, the giant who came from the sea, clothed in garments unlike their own. The stones whisper perhaps, and in that whisper lies the enduring magic of legend.
Oh, America, your light will never fade. Together we rise, no matter the shade. With every trial, we learn to adapt. Our resilience shines, a beacon to the nation's heart. From the mountains to the sea, our voices ring clear. No matter how far, we'll stay forever near. In every struggle, we find our way. United, we're strong in this great land. They say, oh, America, you're more than just a name, a symbol of hope, a promise of fame. Through every test, we keep